going on, guys? We're back in the shop. I was just about to leave and I keep forgetting to tell you guys a story with one of my customers. So I had a customer last week, a couple weeks ago. He came in, I don't know the guy. Somebody gave him my phone number and he called me. He says, hey, I heard you had a cat, really powerful cat. I got a problem with my engine. It was at the dealer. We did a 6-pack of injectors, ran the overhead, changed the wire harness, changed all the sensors. I came across your video regarding biometrical sensor. I put that in, runs a little bit better, but still lacking on power under load. So I asked him what year is the truck, and et cetera, et cetera. I says, can you swing by my shop? So he lives north of me and like 100 miles from here. So he's like, yeah, that's fine, I will come up. So he came up, I believe it was last week. I don't remember what day it was. So I got the truck, I was looking for it. First thing first, I checked the fuel pressure. I kind of was in a rush. He says, let's check the fuel pressure first. He's like, they already checked it. I says, let's check it again. So I put it on, we went for right. I was holding the gauge inside it, we taped the windshield and keep an eye on it. And I saw something was weird, like the fuel pressure would carry about 85, 86 pounds on idle when the engine was warm. And then as he goes through the gears, the fuel pressure drops a little bit, which is completely normal. I can see that happen. So I had a spare check valve. I put a spare check valve. And then he says, look, you own a truck for how many years? He's like, I believe it was like 8, 9 years, almost 10. Did you ever change the fuel lines? No. He's like, no, I didn't know you have to change them. I says, well, let's put a new fuel lines in it. He's like, well, I don't have time. I got to get going, but I will change it. So he called me a couple of days ago and he says, I changed my fuel lines and it becomes completely different engine. When I was underneath the truck, so that's what I find out. This was the style of fuel line. It's a Stratoflex. This is number 6. Packard, Kenworth, and Peterbilt. They're using number 10 for the supply and number 8 for the return. And this is a Caterpillar fitting, which is self-made, kind of. You make your hoses and all. So what happened is, I usually recommend every 5 or 6 years, if you run in this style of hose, replace them. Reason why, because the biodiesel inside there, I don't know if camera is sketching, it's end up eating like one of the liners. So this is, you have outer, then you have metal, then you have rubber, then a rubber inside again. End up eating that away, and that ends up working like a flap. So in his scenario, the fuel lines dried up. They were hard as a stick, and the lining inside collapsed. And when he was demanding for the fuel, which is stepping on the gas pedal, that thing would basically sucks itself shut, and it was starving for the fuel a lot. And it was like vibrating and puffing smoke, and it was kind of intermittent, like it would have power, then it had no power. And I actually felt it. And the heavier load you had, actually it was worse it gets, because you demand for the fuel and it can't give it to you. The reason it's important, if this would be, so picture this, you have a fuel tank and a fuel tank. You have 2 lines coming out, a line from each tank. It goes to the one, and it goes through your primary filter, and then it goes to your transfer pump, and then goes to the filter housing. Sorry, I don't have a truck to show. So everything before the pump, it's actually work on a vacuum. So if that line is collapsing inside, you trying to suck the fuel out of the tank, this thing will collapse inside and will restrict the fuel. So there's no pressure, there's actually negative pressure. That's why if you do have a fuel gauge, it'd be like a vacuum gauge. That's how much dry you have. And the more plugged up the line, the higher the vacuum, the harder the pump needs to work to pump the fuel out of there. So if you own a truck with the rubber fuel lines, before you take it to the dealer and spend a ton of money like this customer did, check your fuel lines. I mean, that's what I would start, because that's the cheapest thing, and it's easiest thing, and you probably can do it in a parking lot to replace them all. You can buy a spool of number 10 and number 8 and replace it. I don't have an example of it. I used it all, but I usually have rolls, and I change fuel lines quite often, because you can solve tremendous amount of problem by changing the fuel lines. Well, the kicker on it, the truck was in a dealer and nobody never thought about it, checking the fuel lines. That's the mechanics nowadays. Thanks for watching all.